The phone call came on a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks before Christmas. "Rachel, honey, we need to talk about the holidays." I was in my home office reviewing financial projections for Q4, but I closed my laptop when I heard Mom's tone. That careful, overly gentle voice she used when delivering bad news. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing's wrong, exactly. It's just, well, your cousin Jessica is hosting this year at her new house, and her husband Michael has some concerns." I waited. Silence was often more effective than questions. "Michael is very successful, as you know. VP at Westfield Analytics. And he's worried about the atmosphere. He thinks having you there might create an uncomfortable dynamic." An uncomfortable dynamic, I repeated slowly. "He's concerned about questions. About your job situation. About why you're still, struggling. Jessica says it might be better if you sat this one out. Just this year. Until you get back on your feet." I stared at my wall of degrees. MBA from Stanford. Bachelor's in Computer Science from MIT. Certifications in Data Analytics, Machine Learning, and Corporate Strategy. Awards from tech conferences where I'd been a keynote speaker. "Back on my feet," I said. "Honey, we're not judging. Everyone goes through rough patches. But Michael comes from a very accomplished family, and Jessica wants to make a good impression. Having you there when you're in this transitional phase, it might raise questions they'd rather avoid." Transitional phase. That's what they were calling it. "I understand," I said calmly. "Tell Jessica I hope she has a lovely Christmas." "You're not upset?" Mom sounded relieved.
"No, Mom.
"I'm not upset." "Oh, good. We'll do something together soon. Maybe New Year's." "Maybe," I said. "I'll check my schedule." I hung up and sat in the darkness of my home office, looking at the city lights below. My penthouse apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that cost more per month than most people's annual salary. But my family had never been here. They still thought I lived in the studio apartment I'd rented 7 years ago when I first moved to the city. They had no idea that apartment had been gone for 5 years. Growing up, Jessica was the family golden child. 3 years older than me, effortlessly pretty, socially brilliant, married at 26 to Michael Chen, a VP at Westfield Analytics who came from old money and new success. They lived in a restored Victorian in the historic district, drove matching autos, and posted carefully curated photos of their perfect life on social media. I was the family question mark, the one who'd been really smart as a kid but never quite figured out how to translate that into the kind of success everyone could see and understand. I went to MIT on a full scholarship while Jessica went to a state school on Dad's dime. I studied computer science and spent my nights building algorithms. Jessica studied communications and spent her nights at sorority formals. After graduation, Jessica got a job in marketing at a mid-sized firm. She moved home, saved money, and talked endlessly about her career trajectory. I took a junior analyst position at a tech startup, making $58,000 a year. The pay was low, the hours were brutal, but I was learning. Rachel's working at some computer company. Mom would explain at family gatherings, her tone apologetic. It's a small operation. Very entrepreneurial. Meanwhile, Jessica was getting promoted, getting engaged, getting everything the family understood as success. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that 2 years into my analyst job, I'd identified a gap in the market. A massive gap. Companies were drowning in data, but had no effective way to translate it into actionable strategy. They had analytics teams producing reports that executives couldn't understand. They had insights buried in spreadsheets that never reached decision makers. I started consulting on the side. Small contracts, helping companies bridge that gap. 1 client became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became a pitch to venture capitalists who saw what I saw. The future belonged to whoever could make data actually useful. We launched DataBridge Analytics 4 years ago. I owned 68% of it. Year 1, we made $3.2 million in revenue. Year 2, $12 million. Year 3, $43 million. This year, we'd break $120 million. We had offices in 4 cities, 237 employees, and contracts with 17 Fortune 500 companies. And my family still thought I was figuring things out. I kept my two lives meticulously separated. When I visited family, I drove a 7-year-old Honda Civic I'd bought used and kept specifically for these occasions. I wore clothes from Target and department stores. I talked vaguely about consulting work and changed the subject when pressed for details. My family never asked for specifics. They'd already decided what my life looked like, and I'd learned years ago that challenging their assumptions was exhausting. Still at that startup? Uncle Frank would ask at Thanksgiving. Something like that, I'd reply. Well, you'll figure it out eventually. Not everyone is cut out for the corporate world. Some people are more creative types. Creative types. Code 4 hasn't figured out how to make real money. Meanwhile, Jessica would regale everyone with stories about Michael's latest promotion, their vacation to the Maldives, the remodel of their Victorian. Mom would beam with pride. Dad would nod approvingly. And I would sit quietly, eating turkey, thinking about the acquisition offer I was reviewing that would value my company at $380 million. I wasn't hiding out of shame. I was protecting something precious, building something real without the toxicity of people who measured worth by what they could see and brag about. My executive team knew the truth. My investors knew. My 237 employees knew. The 17 Fortune 500 companies paying us millions knew. My family didn't need to know. They'd made it clear years ago that they weren't interested in understanding what I actually did. The irony of the Christmas situation was exquisite timing. 3 months ago, my head of M&A, Catherine Santos, had identified Westfield Analytics as an acquisition target. They were a traditional analytics firm, good reputation, solid client list, but technologically stagnant. Their growth had plateaued. Their best talent was leaving for more innovative competitors. They were exactly the kind of company we specialized in acquiring, modernizing, and integrating into our platform. Catherine had spent weeks in preliminary negotiations with Westfield's board. The numbers worked. Their client list complemented ours perfectly. Their team, properly trained and equipped with our technology, could be valuable. The acquisition meeting was scheduled for December 23rd, 3 days after Mom's phone call, 2 days before Christmas. Michael Chun, VP of Operations at Westfield Analytics, would be leading their negotiation team. My cousin Jessica's husband, the man who thought having me at Christmas dinner would create an uncomfortable dynamic. The man who had no idea that the CEO of the company acquiring his firm was his wife's struggling cousin. Catherine knocked on my office door Wednesday morning, 2 days before the meeting. Boss, I've been reviewing the Westfield team composition, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Something interesting came up. What's that? Michael Chun, their VP of Operations. I was doing background research, and I noticed his wife, Jessica Chen's maiden name is Porter. Your last name is Porter. I smiled slightly. Jessica is my cousin. Catherine's eyes widened. Your cousin? The one who... She stopped, remembering the conversation we'd had last week when I'd mentioned being uninvited from Christmas. The very same, I confirmed. Does he know you're the CEO? He has no idea. The family thinks I'm working some entry-level consulting job. Still figuring things out. Catherine leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. Boss, this is going to be spectacular. It's just business, I said. Michael's performance in the negotiation will determine his role in the merged company, regardless of family connections. Of course, Catherine said, her smile widening. Purely business. That said, I added, let's make sure we're especially well prepared. Full team. Complete financial analysis. Technology demonstration. I want them to see exactly what they're becoming part of. I'll brief the team, Catherine said. This is going to be the most professionally satisfying meeting of my career. December 23rd arrived cold and clear. I dressed carefully that morning. Tailored charcoal suit from an Italian designer my family had never heard of, silk blouse, moderate heels. Professional but not showy. My hair pulled back in a sleek bun. Minimal jewelry except for the Patek Philippe watch my board had given me when we hit $100 million in revenue. I looked exactly like what I was, a CEO who'd built something real. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in our main conference room. Catherine had assembled our full executive team. Thomas Wright, our CFO, had prepared comprehensive financial projections. Linda Okoye, our CTO, had our technology demonstration ready. James Morrison, our general counsel, had the acquisition documents prepared. We gathered in the conference room at 9:45. The table was set with leather portfolios, crystal water glasses, fresh coffee. The wall screens displayed the Databridge Analytics logo and our latest quarterly results. Westfield's team is in the lobby, my assistant Rachel announced over the intercom. 5 people. Should I send them up? Give us 2 minutes, I said. Then bring them to conference room A. I looked at my team. Remember, this is an acquisition, not a takeover. We're evaluating cultural fit as much as financial fit. Professional, respectful, but firm on our requirements. They nodded. This was our 12th acquisition. We knew the dance. And Catherine, I added, when Michael Chen enters, watch his face. That's my cousin's husband. Catherine grinned. I wouldn't miss this for anything. At exactly 10 a.m., the conference room door opened. Michael Chen walked in first. Expensive suit, confident stride, the bearing of someone who'd been successful long enough to take it for granted. Behind him came 4 colleagues, 2 men and 2 women, all carrying briefcases and tablets. Michael's eyes swept the room, taking in our team seated along the far side of the table. His gaze moved past Thomas, past Linda, past James, past Catherine, and landed on me, at the head of the table. His briefcase hit the floor with a heavy thud. Hello, Michael, I said calmly. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. His face went through a remarkable series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, then a dawning horror as he understood what was happening. Rachel, he said weakly. It's Miss Porter in this context, Catherine said smoothly. Welcome to Databridge Analytics. I'm Catherine Santos, head of mergers and acquisitions. We spoke on the phone. Michael's colleagues were staring at him, confused by his reaction. One of them, a woman in her 40s, stepped forward. I'm Susan Martinez, Westfield CFO. We're pleased to be here. Please sit. I gestured to the chairs across from us. We have a lot to cover today. Michael remained frozen. His colleagues exchanged glances, then moved to take their seats. Finally, Michael bent to pick up his briefcase and sat down mechanically, his eyes never leaving my face. Let's begin with introductions, I said. I'm Rachel Porter, CEO and founder of Databridge Analytics. To my left is Thomas Wright, our CFO. Linda Okoye, our Chief Technology Officer. James Morrison, General Counsel. And you've spoken with Catherine Santos, who's been leading this acquisition process. I looked at Michael. Would you like to introduce your team? He opened his mouth.
Closed it.
Opened it again. Yes. I'm Michael Chen, VP of Operations at Westfield Analytics. We know, Catherine said helpfully. Your reputation precedes you. Michael's face flushed red. Susan jumped in, introducing the rest of the Westfield team. Throughout the introductions, Michael sat rigidly, his knuckles white on the edge of the table. Excellent, I said when introductions concluded. Thomas, why don't you walk us through the financial structure of the proposed acquisition? For the next hour, we presented our acquisition offer. Thomas explained the financial terms, an all-cash offer of $180 million for Westfield Analytics, with performance bonuses tied to successful integration. Linda demonstrated our technology platform, showing exactly how Westfield's traditional analytics would be transformed by our AI-driven insights engine. Catherine outlined the integration timeline. James covered the legal framework. Through it all, Michael sat silent. His colleagues asked intelligent questions, took notes, seemed genuinely impressed by our capabilities and the generous terms. But Michael said nothing. Finally, Susan turned to him. Michael, you've been quiet. You're our operations expert. What do you think about the integration timeline? Michael cleared his throat. The timeline seems aggressive. Aggressive? Linda repeated. We've successfully integrated 11 companies in the past 3 years. Our average integration time is 8 months. We're proposing 12 months for Westfield given your size. That's conservative. But our systems are complex, Michael said. We can't just replace everything. We're not replacing everything, Linda said patiently. We're enhancing what works and modernizing what doesn't. Your client relationships remain intact. Your team keeps their expertise. We're adding tools that make them more effective. But what if the clients don't want to change? Michael pressed. Then they'll fall behind their competitors who are using better tools, I said quietly. Change isn't optional in this industry, Michael. You know that. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since sitting down. How long have you been doing this? DataBridge has been operational for 4 years, I said. Before that, I spent 3 years building the foundation, the algorithms, the client relationships, the team. 7 years, he said. You've been doing this for 7 years. Yes. And you never mentioned it. To Jessica. To the family. You never asked, I said simply. Susan was looking between us with growing comprehension. Wait. Do you two know each other? Rachel is my wife's cousin, Michael said, his voice hollow. Oh, Susan said. Then, oh. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Catherine broke it. Perhaps we should take a 15-minute break? Give everyone a chance to review the materials, use the restroom, grab some coffee? Good idea, I said. We'll reconvene at 11:45. My team filed out first. Westfield's team followed, except for Michael, who remained seated. When the room was empty except for the two of us, he finally spoke. Jessica told me you were struggling, that you were working some low-level job and barely making rent. I know what Jessica thinks, I said. Why didn't you correct her? I looked at him directly. Michael, in the 7 years you've been married to my cousin, how many times have you asked me about my work? He blinked. We've talked at family gatherings. You've talked at me, I corrected. About your promotions, your bonuses, your vacation homes. You've explained the analytics industry to me, the industry I've been working in longer than you have. You've given me career advice based on assumptions about my situation that you never verified. His face reddened. That's not fair. Last Thanksgiving, you spent 20 minutes explaining to me how analytics companies work. I have 17 Fortune 500 companies as clients. I've spoken at 3 international conferences this year. My company has been profiled in Forbes, Business Insider, and Tech Innovator magazine. But you assumed I needed your explanation because I couldn't possibly know what I was doing. I was trying to be helpful, he said defensively. No, you were trying to feel superior, I said calmly. There's a difference. He stood up, pacing to the window. Does Jessica know? No. Are you going to tell her? That depends, I said. Are you going to tell her why I'm not coming to Christmas dinner? He turned sharply. What? My mother called me last Tuesday. She said you were concerned about my presence creating an uncomfortable dynamic. That you thought having me there in my current situation might raise questions with your family. That Jessica thought it would be better if I sat this one out. Michael's face went pale. That's not exactly what I said. What did you say exactly? He was quiet for a long moment. I said I didn't want to spend Christmas fielding questions about why Jessica's cousin was still struggling while we were doing so well. I said it might make Jessica look bad by association. Like we weren't helping family, or something. So you uninvited me from Christmas because you were worried about your image. When you put it that way, how else should I put it? He rubbed his face with both hands. God, Rachel, if I'd known. You'd have treated me differently, I finished. That's the problem, Michael. You treat people based on what you think they can do for your image instead of who they actually are. That's not true. Really? Tell me about the junior analyst on your team. The one who started 6 months ago. What's her name? He blinked. Sarah something? You don't know, I said. You've worked with her for 6 months, and you don't know her last name. But I bet you know your boss's wife's name. Your boss's kids' names. Because that's who matters to you. The people who can elevate your status. We reviewed Westfield's HR records as part of our due diligence. I continued. You have a 34% turnover rate in departments you manage. The industry average is 18%. Your exit interviews consistently mention lack of respect and dismissive management style. You're technically competent, Michael, but you're a terrible leader. He sank back into his chair. Are you going to fire me? That depends on you, I said. This acquisition will go forward regardless. Your company needs this. Your board knows it. Your clients need our technology. But your role in the merged company depends on whether you can adapt. I pulled out a folder. This is a leadership development plan. You'll work with our head of people operations for the next 6 months. You'll learn how we build teams, how we develop talent, how we create environments where people actually want to stay. If you can demonstrate real growth, you'll have a position as a senior director in the merged organization. I slid the folder across the table. If you can adapt, we'll part ways professionally. 6 months severance, good references help finding your next position. But you choose right now whether you stay or go. He stared at the folder like it might bite him. Why are you offering this? He asked finally. Why not just fire me and be done with it? Because I'm not vindictive, I said.
I am practical.
You have skills. You have client relationships we need. Your technical knowledge is solid. But your leadership skills are lacking, and that's fixable if you're willing to do the work. And if I stay? If I adapt? What happens at Christmas? What happens with the family? That's separate, I said. Business is business. Family is family. Though I imagine Jessica will have questions when she finds out her husband works for her struggling cousin. He let out a bitter laugh. This is going to be a nightmare. Only if you make it one, I said. You could also see it as an opportunity to actually learn something, to become the leader you think you already are. He picked up the folder, opened it, began reading. The meeting reconvened at 11:45. Michael was subdued but professional. The Westfield team asked detailed questions about the integration process, technology training, and client transition. Susan was particularly sharp, pressing Thomas on financial projections and Linda on technology timelines. By the end, I was impressed. Westfield had good people. They deserved better leadership than what Michael had been providing. At 1:30 p.m., we concluded with a tentative agreement. Westfield's board would review our final offer and respond by January 5th. The acquisition would close by February 15th if approved. As the Westfield team gathered their materials, Susan approached me. Ms. Porter, can I speak with you privately? We stepped into my office. She closed the door. I need to apologize, she said immediately. I've been at Westfield for 8 years. I'm the CFO. I should have seen the problems in Michael's management style. The turnover rate. The complaints. But he's good at managing up, impressing the board, delivering presentations, closing deals. I didn't look hard enough at what was happening with his actual team. That's honest, I said. If this acquisition goes through, I want to be part of the solution. I want to learn your systems, understand your culture, help transition our people properly. And I want to make sure Michael either adapts or moves on. Westfield deserves better. Our team deserves better. I studied her. She was genuine. Tired around the eyes but steady in her conviction. Susan, I think you're going to do very well at DataBridge, I said. We value people who can acknowledge mistakes and commit to growth. She smiled with visible relief. Thank you. And for what it's worth, whatever family dynamics are happening here, you've built something impressive. Jessica should be proud of you. Jessica will find out soon enough, I said. That should be an interesting conversation. After the Westfield team left, my executive team gathered in my office for debrief. That was the most professionally tense meeting I've ever attended, Thomas said. And I've attended some doozies. Michael's in shock, Linda observed. He'll need serious coaching if he's going to survive here. Will you actually give him 6 months? Catherine asked. Or is that a polite way of managing him out? I meant what I said, I replied. If he can adapt, he stays. Our headcount projections assume we're retaining most of Westfield's leadership team, but he has to do the actual work. And the family situation? James asked carefully. That's going to explode, I said simply. Probably on Christmas Eve when Michael tells Jessica why I'm not coming to dinner. But that's not a business problem. That's a personal problem I'll deal with personally. Catherine grinned. Boss, you have a gift for understatement. I left the office at 6, drove home to my penthouse, and poured a glass of wine. The city was lit up for Christmas. Lights strung between buildings, decorated trees and windows, the festive chaos of last-minute shopping. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. I told Jessica. She wants to talk to you.
I'm sorry.
Before I could respond, my phone rang. Jessica. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Jessica. Rachel. What the hell? Her voice was shrill. Michael just told me you're the CEO of some company? That you're acquiring his firm? That you've been secretly rich this whole time? I'm not secretly rich, I said calmly. I built a company. I did it openly. You just never asked. Never asked? Rachel, you let us all think you were struggling. You let Mom worry about you. You showed up to family dinners in that crappy car wearing Target clothes. The car runs fine, I said. And there's nothing wrong with Target. That's not the point. You lied to us. I never lied, I said firmly. You all assume things about my life, and I didn't correct you. There's a difference. Why wouldn't you correct us? Why would you let us think? Because you never cared enough to ask for the truth, I interrupted. Jessica, in 7 years, you have never once asked me what I actually do. Not once. You've told me about your job, your house, your vacations, your husband's success. But you've never asked about mine. Because we thought you were struggling. We didn't want to rub it in. No, you didn't want to acknowledge me as an equal, I said. It was easier to have me as the family project. The one who hadn't figured it out yet. It made your success look better by comparison. That's not fair. Jessica, you and Michael uninvited me from Christmas because having me there might create an uncomfortable dynamic for his family. Because my situation might reflect badly on you. Do you know how that felt? She was quiet for a moment. Michael said you were a consultant or something. I didn't know you'd be embarrassing. I'm a CEO of a $120 million company, I said. I have 237 employees. I've been profiled in 3 national business magazines this year. But you found me embarrassing. I didn't mean. Yes, you did.
You meant exactly that.
And it's fine, Jessica. People reveal who they are through their choices. You chose to exclude me based on assumptions you never verified. That's on you. So what happens now? She asked, her voice smaller. Business-wise? Your husband will work for my company if he can adapt. If not, he'll receive a generous severance package. Family-wise? I don't know. That depends on whether you can see me as something other than a project or a liability. Mom is going to freak out, Jessica said. Mom uninvited me from Christmas, I reminded her. She'll survive the revelation that I'm successful. Will you come to Christmas? Jessica asked suddenly. Please? Michael feels terrible. I feel terrible. We want to make this right. I looked out at the city lights, considering. Part of me wanted to say no, to let them sit with the discomfort of what they'd done. But another part, a smaller, softer part, remembered being kids together. Building forts in the backyard. Jessica teaching me how to braid hair. The summers before success and status became the only things that mattered. I'll think about it, I said. I'll let you know tomorrow. Okay, she said quietly. Rachel?
I'm sorry.
Really sorry. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't undo years of dismissiveness. It's a start, but it's not enough. What would be enough? I don't know yet, I said honestly. I'll figure it out and let you know. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Mom called. Then Dad. Then Uncle Frank. Then Aunt Marie. The family phone tree had activated. I ignored all of them and opened my laptop. There were acquisition documents to review, quarterly reports to finalize, a presentation to prepare for our board meeting in January. There was work to do. There was always work to do. Around 11, I heard a knock on my door. Not the main door, the private elevator that opened directly into my penthouse. Only 3 people had access: my assistant, my building manager, and Catherine. I opened the door to find Catherine holding 2 bottles of wine and a bag from my favorite Thai restaurant. "I figured you could use backup," she said. I smiled and let her in. We sat at my dining table, the custom Italian marble one that cost more than my parents' car, eating pad thai and drinking wine while Catherine told me stories about her own family's reaction when they discovered she was successful. "My brother called me a liar," she laughed. "Said I'd been hiding things to make him look bad. It took him 2 years to understand that I just didn't feel the need to brag about every accomplishment." "Do you regret not telling them earlier?" I asked. She considered this. "Sometimes. But mostly no. I built something real, without their judgment or expectations weighing on me. When they finally found out, I was established enough that their opinions didn't matter anymore. That was worth the secrecy." "That's how I feel," I said. "Like I protected something precious by keeping it separate." "You did," Catherine said firmly. "You built this company on your own terms. That's powerful." We finished the wine around 1 a.m. Catherine left, and I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows looking at the sleeping city. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Michael. "I'm going to do the work. The leadership training. All of it. And I'm going to apologize properly to every person I've dismissed. Starting with you."
"I'm sorry, Rachel."
"Truly." I typed back. "See you after the holidays. We have a company to build." Then I saw there was another message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Aunt Rachel. This is Sophie. I'm Jessica and Michael's daughter.
"I'm 12.
Mom told me you own a company with computers. That's so cool. I want to learn about computers. Can you teach me sometime?" I stared at that message for a long time.
Sophie.
Jessica's daughter. My cousin once removed, or whatever the terminology was. I'd met her at family gatherings, of course, but always in passing. Another person who'd been told I was the struggling relative.
Itipadbak, isupia.
"I'd love to teach you about computers. How about we start after the holidays? I'll show you how I built my company." 3 dots appeared immediately. She was still awake. "Yes, please. Mom says you're really successful, and she's sorry she didn't know. I think it's awesome. None of my friends have an aunt who's a CEO." I smiled. "I'll text your mom tomorrow and set something up. Sleep well, Sophie." "You too. Merry Christmas." Christmas Eve morning, I made my decision. I called Jessica. "I'll come to dinner tomorrow. On 3 conditions." "Anything," she said immediately. 1. No performative apologies. No making a scene. We eat dinner like adults and move forward. Okay. 2. Michael and I maintain professional boundaries. Business stays at the office. Family stays at home. We don't mix them. Agreed. 3. I'm bringing Sophie a present. A laptop with coding software. I'm going to start teaching her programming if she's interested. Jessica laughed, the sound lighter than it had been. "She's going to lose her mind. She's been talking about you nonstop since I told her."
"Good," I said.
"Then I'll see you tomorrow at 6. Rachel." Jessica said as I was about to hang up. "Thank you for giving us another chance." "I'm not doing it for you," I said honestly. "I'm doing it for Sophie, and for the version of us that used to build forts in the backyard. But Jessica, if this is going to work, you have to actually see me. Not who you assumed I was. Who I actually am." "I'm going to try," she said. "I promise I'm going to try." "That's all I'm asking," I said. Christmas Day arrived with snow, the first white Christmas in 3 years. I dressed carefully. Nice, but not too nice. The cashmere sweater that cost a fortune but looked understated. Jeans that fit perfectly. Boots that were expensive but not obviously so. I drove the Tesla. Not the Honda. The Tesla. If we were doing this, we were doing it honestly. I arrived at Jessica's Victorian at 5:55 p.m. with a wrapped laptop under one arm and a bottle of very good wine under the other. Jessica opened the door. Behind her, I could see the house, beautifully decorated, warm lights, the smell of roasting turkey. Family members gathered in the living room.
Hi, she said. Iraplia.
We stood there for a moment, and then she hugged me. Not a performance hug for watching relatives, but a real one. I'm glad you came, she whispered. Me too, I said. And I meant it. We walked inside together, and I prepared myself for the questions, the reactions, the inevitable awkwardness of family seeing me clearly for the first time. But as Sophie came running down the stairs, her eyes lighting up when she saw me, I realized something. I wasn't the same person who'd been excluded from this dinner 2 weeks ago. I was still Rachel Porter, CEO of Boardroom Analytics. Still successful, still accomplished, still worthy. But now I was also the aunt who was going to teach a 12-year-old girl that her worth wasn't measured by other people's assumptions. And that felt like the best Christmas present I could give.